It's different seeing them up close. We're not meant to share the planet with those things.
Katie and Nina have a fairly antagonistic relationship in this film. How did
Right.
you and Morena Baccarin approach building that tension between your characters?
Um, I don't know. But first of all, I love your makeup and hair.
Thank
Like,
you.
it's very Halloween. It's perfect. I've been thinking about dyeing my hair black, and really making me want to. Anyway, I don't know. It's funny because I love Marina so much. We just got on right away, but we kind of all poked fun at each other and had like a very like rough and tumble, sarcastic sense of humor. So it was pretty easy to like beat her up. It wasn't as hard as you would think it would be. We enjoyed it.
There's quite a bit of action in Elevation. Did performing some of that action make you feel more connected to Katie's journey as a character?
Definitely. I love doing action sequences and stunts. I love doing stunts. The thing where she falls and catches the chairlift, I actually got to do. Uh and it was so fun. I was wearing a harness and I got to dive all day off of this big tower and catch this chairlift. Um I loved it.
The film's story, it kind of dives into different existential questions about humanity and the nature of humankind. So, would you say that being thrust into post-apocalyptic circumstances brings out the best or the worst in Katie as a person?
Um that's a really interesting question. I'm trying to think back. I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think that they're doing like a very selfless thing, right? In a sense, going down below elevation to try to fight this monster and save this child, Will's child. But I think when you're in desperation and fear, you act in ways that can be a little bit ugly, and you see some of that. But I don't know. I mean, like with anything, it's a mix.
There's a point in the film where they reveal a bit more about your character's backstory and some of the things that she went through before the world went to bits. How present was that backstory in your mind in other scenes where that backstory isn't being directly addressed? Like, is it deeply informing a lot of how you play her, or is it more so something that you're only really having at the forefront of your mind when it's actually being addressed directly in the story?
No, it was there. I think it informs how hardened Katie can be and how not receptive to new love she is. I mean, she has this relationship with Will, and you can see her like kind of open up and then close back, and then open up and then close back. And with Nina as well, it's very difficult for her to trust new people.
Well, thank you so much. They're going to have me wrap soon, so I will simply congratulate you on the film and encourage you to try black hair or any hair color that you prefer because life is too short. I decided I wanted black hair, and now I have black hair. Had it for years, and I love it, and I've never looked back. So
It looks so good. You might see me with black hair in like a month.
I love it, truly. It appeared as though you used a fair bit of handheld camera work. What was it about this technique that you deemed to be the right fit for Elevation?
It's there's not as much handheld as there is Steadicam, and our Steadicam operator was incredible and rides on like segways down like places in mines and so forth. There's a little bit of handheld, but it's really the idea to be with the characters as they're moving through spaces. Locations are very important to me. This movie has some pretty extraordinary places that haven't been put on film, like the huge mine that is a real mine that we were able to film in the ski lift and so forth. And so, in order to capture that and sort of put you into the experience of moving through those spaces that you don't get to move through in normal life, having the camera be able to walk or run with a character is very important.
Elevation explores big existential ideas about humankind and humanity itself, which we get to see through how characters deal with losing more or less everything. So, as a storyteller, were you aiming to ask these questions of the audience or tell the audience something about humankind?
I don't think films do a good job of telling you how to think, but I think they do a great job of raising questions. And I'm glad that you saw that you didn't just look at it as a action thriller horror movie. But yeah, what was interesting to me at the root, really deepest level, is that our brains are these incredible, the human brain is this incredible thing that's created all this civilization around me, including the window washer out and the big cities behind me, right? So they're our greatest asset, and yet they can be our complete undoing, which I don't want to spoil the sort of twist there at the end. But I think if you think about what that twist means, in terms of what the human brain can do, or what an intelligent life form can do, it raises questions that are that much more important with what's happened with AI in the last year.
I want to make sure I get this in before they tell me to wrap. Morena Baccarin's character Nina says a line that I found interesting about horses. Is the subtext of that line a clue about the origins of the Reapers? You don't have to get into specifics.
It's more the subtext is when we start the movie, they're in a kind of Garden of Eden like setting, right? So with no humans around, with no technology, the sort of Garden of Eden comes back up, and that reinforces this thematic about how much good do our brains do and how much bad.
I really liked the practical details of the world of Elevation. Can you share a little bit about the vision for the film's production design and costuming? Just for example, I really loved Morena's, I think it was like a patchwork robe. I thought it was really cute. Like I would have gotten that from a store.
Well, I've worked with the same costume designer now for the last 3 movies, Aisha Lee. I will not be able to work with her again because she passed away since we made the film, which is really sad. But she came to me and said, what do you think about, she's character's a little crazy, even though she's brilliant, right? She's like, what do you think about something that almost, you could imagine like a larger than life sort of homeless, person patching together from stuff. And I looked at what she came up with, and yeah, I agree with you. That's one of my favorite things in the movie. Production design wise, it's driven by locations for me. So we looked to find a town in like a real place in Colorado that could be the refuge, that could with dirt roads and all the stuff that we could move our camera through and between and have our actors come inside and out of. And then the production design is driven off that realism. I'd always try to do things as realistic as you can, given the premise of the movie.
Well, thank you so much for your time, George. Congratulations on the film. I was pleasantly surprised by it, and I definitely have my theories about the subtext and the origins of the Reapers. So
I'll just keep asking the questions and I'm happy.
Thank you.
But no one's had a chance to study them. You study something long enough, you can figure out how to kill it.
If it doesn't kill you first.
Hi, I'm LadyJenevia, and on my channel, I like to talk about entertainment media. I'm going to jump in now with a spoiler-free review of Elevation, as well as an introduction to the film's premise, if you're not already familiar with that. And then I will have a spoiler section in which I discuss the film's ending and give my analysis of it. These sections are timestamped, so you are free to decide how far you would like to proceed into spoilers. Elevation is a post-apocalyptic action thriller starring Anthony Mackie and Morena Baccarin. The story focuses on a single father and 2 women who live in the mountains to survive in a world filled with monsters that are known as Reapers. These Reapers hunt humans at any altitude below 8,000 feet, which is about 2.5 kilometers for anyone watching this video who needs that information in metric in order to have it make sense. Anthony's character, Will, has a son named Hunter, who has a health condition that requires certain medical supplies. Thus, Will and these 2 women, Nina and Katie, have to make a journey below the 8,000 feet altitude and try to not get got. by the Reapers. Elevation is a film with a simple concept, and it's pretty solid and competent in its execution. It kind of feels like something from the 1990s that you would constantly see being replayed on television. If anyone remembers, a couple of years ago, Angelina Jolie was in a film called Those Who Wish Me Dead, and a lot of folks were saying that that film felt like something from the 1990s as well. There's just something about seeing name-recognizable actors doing mid-budget, non-IP franchise action films in the woods that feels nostalgic. As far as themes go, as you will have seen me mention in my interviews with actress Maddie Hasson, who plays Katie, and Elevation director George Nolfi, the story of Elevation has deeper layers where it's posing these deeper existential questions about humanity and humankind. Viewers that want to do a deeper analysis of the Elevation material are able to do so, but for the general audience that just wants to see an action story of survivalism in a post-apocalyptic world, it also meets that brief. The world feels very real and lived in because they've filmed on location out in the forest and up in these mountains. Considering films that have smaller casts and limited locations usually do so because of a more modest budget, I was pleasantly surprised by the execution of the creature design. They look pretty good, and the threat they pose does feel real when watching the story play out. But as far as character drama goes, Nina was definitely the one who had the most dimension. The nuances of Morena Baccarin's performance were excellent. You just really got a strong sense of what Nina was feeling and the burden that she's carrying internally, psychologically, even when Nina isn't saying everything that she feels out loud. She really elevates the scenes she's in and the exchanges she has with other characters, whether it's the baggage of Nina and Will's story or the tension Nina has with Katie. Those interactions were significantly more interesting and compelling to watch than the character interactions that did not involve her. Overall, I ended up rating Elevation 3 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd account. It accomplishes everything that it sets out to do. But now I want to talk about some spoilers, specifically in the sense of the film's ending, as well as my interpretation of it. One of the recurring plot points of Elevation is Nina, Morena's character, trying to figure out how to develop a quote-unquote magic bullet that will be able to successfully destroy a Reaper and thus liberate humanity from being trapped in the mountains. Nina is a scientist. She used to be a researcher at Caltech, so she is extremely intelligent and analytical in trying to study, research, and understand what the Reapers are and where they came from. Eventually, Nina decides to try coating bullets in cobalt, and this ends up proving to be successful. Upon using the cobalt bullets, she's able to destroy these Reapers. Before she had this breakthrough, she had already determined that the Reapers generate their own electromagnetic field. That's why she was able to build a compass watch device, which acts as an alert system, so she is able to know if one of them is within half a mile from where she is. When she and Will look at the remnants of the creatures she's just shot and destroyed, it becomes evident that the Reapers are not sentient beings made of organic material. They were actually machines that had been programmed to hunt them. And this makes more sense to them once they note how the Reapers would never sleep or breathe or go a single inch above 8,000 feet. All of that translates more so as programming, not wild animal behavior. When Will wonders aloud who programmed the Reapers, Nina looks up into the sky. And then, when the film shows its small mid-credit stinger scene, the two of them look up into the sky using a telescope and observe 3 bright dots, which further suggests aliens. Now, some of the other things they say about the Reapers is that they first came from underground when they emerged and began killing humans. Director George Nolfi mentioned some biblical imagery in my interview with him. He was mentioning something about the Garden of Eden, and Will, Anthony Mackie's character, says in the film that Jesus freaks, those are his words, not mine, don't yell at me for a script I didn't write, believe the Reapers are God's judgment. The scene I asked the director about was a moment where our main trio, Will, Nina, and Katie, are walking through some trees and they observe a large pack of wild horses. Katie asks where'd they all come from, and Nina responds, 3 years without us, and the us referring to humans. What is the subtext of that? By removing 95% of the human population, that's the number the film says were killed by the Reapers when they emerged, animals that live below the 8,000 feet altitude were able to live freely without having to deal with being hunted, polluted, having their environment destroyed for development of things like real estate, roads, and so on and so forth. When I asked the director, George, if he was trying to ask questions of the audience or tell the audience something specific that he was leaning towards, he said that he was leaning towards asking questions, which to me would suggest that you don't necessarily have a clear thesis or message that you're pushing hard to inform the audience of, and thus I can interpret the material in any way I see fit based on the material that's been presented to me, so long as I can make my case for it and it will be true to me. The aliens are fairly explicitly presented within the film's canon, so aliens were the ones that created and programmed the Reapers. But that begs the question of why? If these aliens are advanced enough to be able to observe and monitor humanity, and the absolute car crash the so-called developed societies have made, things like the climate crisis, the massive amounts of pollution caused by the military-industrial complex, and so on and so forth, the aliens have judged humanity and found it largely lacking. So you do a sort of apocalyptic reset on the human species, make them go back to living a more simple life, where they are not able to do mass pollution or large-scale crimes against humanity or nature, and then with the way the film ends, where you see a map with this expanding graphic which indicates that humanity is gradually regaining access to more land because of the cobalt bullets and getting rid of the Reapers, I look at that expansion across the map as feeling like an echo of the colonial expansion across Turtle Island. And the score that's playing doesn't feel warm or hopeful. It's existing somewhere in this space of tension and lingering questions of whether or not humanity will simply repeat the same crimes that invoked the wrath of these judgmental aliens in the first place. Now, on the more hopeful, optimistic side, you see how the main three characters have these moments of growth and connection. You have a father's love for his child, where he will risk his life to get him the medical supplies that he needs. You see a mother's regret for not truly appreciating her family until she lost them in this apocalypse. There are people who don't get along because of personal baggage, but are able to put their differences aside and find common ground and genuine connection. So there's definitely this sense that humans have the capacity to be truly good, but that they must explicitly prioritize that goodness and prioritize caring for one another, or else they will become the very evil that provoked the judgment of the aliens. But that was merely my interpretation of it. If you need the story to spell everything out for you like a how-to manual, I don't think you will be getting that from this story. Nonetheless, if you've seen the film, you can give your interpretation of the material in the comments below, and I will see how the answers vary.